She didn't grow up doing triathlon, and yet she's already competing at a serious level.
I definitely think it's been a sport that entering into at a later age.
This isn't about talent, and it's definitely not about training all day.
I don't push myself too hard, I don't do too much.
If you're new to triathlon, this is what no one tells you.
You set out a plan, you execute it. You don't have to be competitive to get involved in a sport, I guess.
From entering the sport late to progressing fast,
And then I won by like 10 minutes or something.
this conversation will change how you think about training.
Hello humans, welcome to the M-Word podcast, brought to you by Martin, that's me.
And Matt.
That's him. Matt, hi. We're going to talk really quickly because we're really cold. For those watching, yeah, it's cold in here. The heating's not working.
It's really on here.
And we need to move quickly because your brain won't move quickly, so it's going to help you as well, isn't it, Clara?
Yeah, it will. Yeah.
So thank you for joining us, Clara.
Thank you.
We're here to talk tiny little bit of business, but more sport. So perhaps for our listeners, quick introduction, and maybe I think we were just chatting off air about, obviously you've got to a good level in the sport you're in, which you can talk about at not a late age but certainly sport wasn't part of your younger life other than horse. Talk a little bit about that, and then we can natter.
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. My name's Clara. I am recently a triathlete, I guess. I call it a pro amateur, so someone who just devotes far too much time to be amateur to a sport. But I only started 2 years ago. In fact, the Island Games, which was in Orkney, which I went with my lovely friend Matt, was my 5th triathlon, where I came 3rd, which was really unexpected because I had absolutely no idea. But I absolutely love it, and I am the final age of 33 for one more month when I'll eventually become 34, which puts me in the age category for racing at 35 to 39. Now, I think I'm technically a 35 to 39 age grouper. But yeah, my background in sport wasn't really sport. I wasn't a sporty person as such, but my family was sporty. My dad was always really sporty, but I was quite girly. So I did like, I don't know if you call horses girly, but I was more like outdoorsy, horsey, and then...
Were you competing with the horses? Or
Yeah, I compete every single weekend, right up probably until I was maybe like 19, 20, and then really got my head stuck into my career. And that's when kind of horses took a back seat. I did it just for fun. I did a little bit of competing, but then I was never really good. You know, like I could ride the horse and I'd go away competing and I had a great time. But like sport with anything for me, it was mostly just for fun. Although I definitely took it too seriously, took it really, really seriously. And then I got into... I did eventing, so like a very, very amateur version of what Yasmin Ingham does. And it was great fun. You know, I had the best time kind of in that sort. I don't know if you call it like, it's not a physical sport, is it? It's almost like a harmony sport. Oh yeah, it's definitely a sport, but it's like a harmony sport where you've got 2 things to consider. You have to like deal with a live animal, and then I guess I got into a little bit of like gym, the lunchtime gym at the office, and maybe the little jog. But I didn't do too much. I wasn't a sports person, I'd say. And then over the past couple of years, I got back on the bike. Just
keep fit.
Just keeping fit, yeah. Very much just sport was just for health, really. And I've always done a little bit of running, a little bit of jogging, and then just Andy came home one day and I was in his wetsuit and I was like, can I try a swim? Can we go for a swim? And since then, I've just loved it. I love the challenge, and I definitely think it's been a sport that entering into at a later age, a lot of sports, if you haven't started at 12 years old, there's no hope. Whereas I started at 32 and I feel like, I've only just begun. And I see like progress every single month, week. I've just got myself a new coach, which has made, I've gone uncoached for 2 years. So I'm really hoping to just see where I can go with triathlon, but also just because like it's fun. It's not my career, it's my hobby, it's something I really enjoy. And yeah, the Island Games was a real highlight for me because I guess it showed, actually, if if I keep working at this, I can continue to improve.
Yeah. Do you think that obviously your husband does? Do you think if that he didn't do that, do you think you would have got into triathlon out of interest?
No. No. I mean, Matt's probably the same as me. Is that swimming is the hardest part, and coming from someone, you can get out for a run, it's fine. Get on the bike and it's fine. In fact, I was probably naturally quite gifted with cycling. Swimming, I hadn't swum since I was like 10.
Okay.
Do you know, I think I got my like yellow certificate or something. So if Andy didn't do it, I definitely wouldn't have got into it, which is a shame because I would have missed out on, so much fun that I've had. And that's definitely something I'd encourage people to do. Like, get a swimming lesson.
And had Andy been doing that for a long time before you decided to don that? I'm just trying to work it out.
Yeah, Andy
what was that switch for you to? Was it literally just that I'm just going to put a wetsuit on? Suddenly it just happened to be that moment that changed
it? Like a quarter life crisis. I honestly have no idea where it came from. Was it like some desire to need a new challenge? I'd done a little bit of running and I always had in my head I would never race, and I took the competitive element out of it because I didn't understand like competitiveness for me personally. So I would set myself personal challenges. So I will try to run a sub 1:30 half marathon. I would do it all in like my own kind of time. And then I don't know, I had ran a sub 1:30 just, not in a race. And maybe it was just time for the next challenge. I have no idea what spurred it on, but I'm really grateful that it did because it's such an amazing sport. And, there's people not just who are in kind of the early teens who do the sport, but as you move into like half Ironman, there's people coming past me at the finish line who are in the 54 to upwards category. Do you know, it's such an amazing sport for like the older generation. And you can just continue to improve. And the community of triathlon is genuinely like no other. Like I would go far as saying like there is no sport like it where it's just this welcoming community. It's more about like, well done, you did it, rather than what place did you come, if that makes sense.
And that's not just Isle of Man. You see that when you travel and do the sport as well.
I think on the Isle of Man, it's very much like that. It's very, very friendly. Maybe when you go away, Ironman, half Ironman, all those kind of distances, it does seem really friendly. Yeah, it can get competitive.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think when I've done them, it's very much at the start. I guess it depends on your goals, shall I say. So at least when I've turned up, for me, it was just finishing them and enjoying them. So where I was and things like that, when at the start line, you're just talking to people, you're having a laugh, and the music's all going, you're all high-fiving, and that sets you up. It's not, right, I'm barging you out of the way because I need to get 5 places towards the start line or something like that. Whereas I found those events, depending on your mentality, how you're approaching them, for me, you say it's just you're all a community together, and it's the finish line. It's the finish line.
Yeah, it is.
Go out and enjoy the day. The support,
the atmosphere is unbelievable.
Whenever I've done them, it's just lined with people cheering you on, and that's the good thing I like about it. Is you have your names on there, so obviously it just means that more. All you hear is "Go on, Matt," especially when you're feeling horrendous or something like that. And yeah, I've found that a great aspect of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's enjoyable.
The competing side, so if you've done a bit of running, you've done a bit of biking, that obviously you've never kind of clicked over to go, I'm in a race here. No. But when you added that swimming in and obviously combine them all, why?
I honestly haven't. I do. Yeah, I think so. When I did my first sprint that I did was the May sprint in Ramsey, and you swim in the Ramsey pool. And I'd obviously done all my learning in a pool, so I knew that I could swim 750 meters in the pool, albeit slow. And when I did that, it was, listen, I'm going to set myself this challenge to just finish. And so my mentality was not the competitive element. And then I won by like 10 minutes or something silly. And I crossed the finish line and I looked at my husband. I was like, I completed it. And he's looking at me like, are you mad? Like, you've just absolutely smashed that out of the park. He's like, you've won. I was like, what? And I think I still do that today. You know, when I did the games, I had no expectation of myself. I put in the good work and I do work hard. Although hard's probably not the right, I work sensibly. I don't push myself too hard. I don't do too much, but I do the right thing. So I guess whatever I was going to do on the day was a product of what I'd put in behind it. And that just happened to be like a really great result. But I didn't expect that. And going around the course, you didn't know where you were, did you? No. I didn't know whether I was first, second, third, fourth, fifth. In my head, I thought I was 10th. So I was like, here I come in for 10th. What an achievement. And then I come over the line and there's only 2 girls there. And I'm like, this is really weird. Where is everyone? But the same with kind of Ironman, half Ironman. Like that 70.3 distance is, because I'm not the most naturally gifted swimmer, I have to work really hard at it. You can start in the field wherever you want. So I would start quite far back in the field because my time was slower. And then by the time that I get out the swim at this leisurely pace and then I get on the bike, it's almost like a time trial. So by the time I got to the end, I didn't actually ever know where I would place. But that's definitely a distance I want to tap into more because I've seen some great progression in that area. And I think it's something that, I hate to say for people my age, but people my age and upwards can really get their teeth stuck into.
Yeah. And where did that structure come from there? Because you just listening to you there saying that, you work hard and you're quite disciplined and that. Where's that come from? Is that something that you've seen? Like, is that yourself? Is that looking at how maybe Andy sets up? So you thought, looking at how he does, I'll replicate that, or is that coach work, or how have you managed to, for anyone being able to come into the sport with that sort of attitude and seeing the benefits in it?
Yeah, I think mine definitely comes from, I guess from a younger age. I always put the hard work in with the horses, working hard to make sure they were the happiest they could be and they would perform the best. And I think going even further back from that, my dad would train really hard, work really hard. And my dad seemed to be doing well. He was always good on his bike. And maybe that's where it comes from. But I guess where I really applied it was when I was 18 and I went into business, that the results did come from that. You had to try and balance the full-time job and the studying, because you were having to do them at the same time and then trying to look after yourself. And, you were an 18-year-old at the end of the day trying to do a job and study. And then because I managed to do that quite well, I actually met Andy during my studies, and we were both this kind of diligent couple that would kind of work, study, sit the exams. And I applied that mentality to every walk of life. Once I'd achieved my exam success, I was maybe 21, just touching 22 when I was qualified. Then when I went into, industry and finance, I applied that in my job. And then I would continue to progress in that. And then when I set up our businesses, I applied it in that. And I guess for me, it's always what's worked. It's, you set out a plan, you execute it, the results will be of the work that you put behind it. And it's definitely worked for triathlon. But I think what I have learned with sport is that, and in business, you can't push too hard because you will burn out. I've had several instances of just pushing too hard in a work environment that I've learned that you need to take your foot off the gas before you go too far.
How do you know when it's time to?
I think health was a clear signal for me in business. Setting up businesses or being new startup businesses, is so tough. Like, it's rotten. And I take my hat off to every business owner out there, especially people trying to start up new businesses, and especially in today's current climate, because it's really stressful, it's really hard, and it requires some grit. And I think sometimes you have no choice but to go over the line. And for me personally, that definitely would kind of seep out in my health. I would maybe get ill quite often. I would suffer from like skin side effects or the way I was feeling. So with triathlon, I've definitely got a different outlook on it. Probably just because you've learned from your mistakes that you've got to be kind of clever. But I think this year, I've noticed that it would be better to have a coach to help me with that. Yeah, okay. Because I'm obviously the kind of person who can go over the line without any qualms. I do it without batting an eyelid. So having a coach to keep me accountable is really useful. It's great to bounce ideas off. But I'd know myself, how I was feeling. And so I'm just really mindful about my health. And that's your number one priority at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's interesting then. So at times even that coach might be holding you back, I guess, as part of the messaging to him.
She's a she.
Sorry,
yeah, she is a professional triathlete herself and a pure inspiration. Just someone I really look up to in the sports. In a similar sense, had no background, did a bit of swimming, got into it, and just really a really inspirational young person. But yeah, I think any professional triathlete will know that they can't push too far, or maybe they've even experienced burnout themselves. So it's nice to learn from someone. I think, one thing I've definitely learned outside of sport is that always take the help. You can learn from anyone and everyone in every different walk of life. And it's nice to talk to someone about it sometimes, because triathlon can be, an individual sport. You're not going out in a pack all the time, and, there is 3 different sports to juggle. So yeah, I'm really grateful I'm excited to see what it brings, and, just bring a bit of balance. But in the same way, it can maybe push you in times that you probably wouldn't push yourself. But that's not an area she was with.
Yeah, it's interesting because we did a podcast a little while ago with Will Draper, and he said similar things, which is it's obviously a mind game, but take your time. Yeah, it takes years to build.
Yeah.
So if we look in the short space time, that's why I was quite interested in having a conversation. Is that again, I can't say it in my late 40s, coming later into sport, but is that, having not done it then, if you think about that first try, or is it because you knew people in there, it was less daunting? Because I always imagine people picking up new sports, especially later in life, walking into that new environment. I know you mentioned it's a friendly environment, but can be quite daunting, albeit I appreciate you and your personality. Probably just
no, it was so daunting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like petrified. It was so daunting, but I was so welcomed, and that wasn't really because I know anyone. And it was just so welcoming. And when I got to the start, I was just immediately kind of put at ease. But I do think that it's really nice to be a person in the sport to make sure other people experience that as well. I'm not a competitive person. I don't like that element to sport at all. I want it to be inclusive, and I want everyone to feel at home and welcome. And so I think I want to push on my experiences of getting onto into triathlon onto other people. But it's something you see all the time at Tri Club, is new people coming into the sport. And, there's coaches who do like winter training for people who want to learn to get better at swimming. Just the nicest people you will ever meet, genuinely like the nicest people you will ever meet. And there's just not that, I don't know what it is. There's just not that competitive edge to it, or that toxic edge to it, where it can be a little bit like, as you said, daunting. Yeah. But it's not like that. You just don't get that with triathlon. And I would say that's not even just my personality. I would make friends with a post, or a pillar. But other people in there, I'd say, would have experienced the same.
Yeah, quite interested in the approach of, you mentioned about not being competitive, and you've talked earlier about being on start lines or finishing events, not having a clue where you were. Do you think, like, why don't you like competitiveness?
I think, like, I'd reverse the question and ask people, why are they competitive? You know, for me, it's not my job. It's not my.
So you would be competitive in work, perhaps, but not in sport.
I want the best in work, but I don't want to beat anyone. Do you know? To me, it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. If it was my job and there was a livelihood on the line, then of course you're competitive. You want to win because you've got money to bring home. But it's not my job. It's a hobby. So I do it because I love it. So does it really matter where I place? For me personally, no. But I'm sure for some people, you know, it's quite important for them. But the competitive side isn't what brings me the joy. You know, it doesn't matter where I come. Just as long as I know when I get on the start line that I've put the work behind it.
I'm going to poke a little bit more at it, not to
Is it therapy?
Just because then if you talk about the 1:30 marathon and you've obviously set something in your own head there, that, I mean, there's competition there going on.
Yeah.
So there's a difference for you between a competition of oneself and one's self-improvement rather than competition of Jim or John next to me that 100%. You want to be.
Yeah, and I think that is why I have fallen to half Ironman distance, the 70.3 distance, because it's time trialing. So it's you against yourself, and you will come where you come. But I would absolutely hate the idea of being in a pack of cyclists and sprinting for the finish. Oh my God, absolutely no way, absolutely no way. But, you know, I'd be interested to hear from a competitive person why they are competitive. And I think my life has so much meaning that part doesn't really come into it. You know, there's so much, I guess there's so many other things, not that, oh, my life has meaning, yours doesn't, more that there's so many other things that make my life feel whole that doesn't come, just doesn't come to the top.
Yeah.
Maybe it comes at a time. I don't know.
Doesn't need to, no.
No.
I think obviously I'm pressing on the question, but I don't think it's because I think people should have it. It's probably not a conversation I can't really recall having with anyone. Not because they've all been competitive. Perhaps the conversation just hasn't happened, but we do our hobbies, which we all do around the table, and most people that, you know, unless you're getting paid, if the rallies, it's pretty much either a hobby or it's, yeah, I appreciate you might be on a trajectory to try and become professional at it, but it is a hobby. But we still are competitive. I don't think competitiveness is a bad thing, but it can also mess with your head.
Yeah.
Because then you're worrying about things that aren't in your control, which is ultimately everyone else.
Yeah. Oh, it is so true. You know, and I
refreshing
think,
is my point.
Yeah, I guess I wonder whether that's what I don't know. Maybe that's what triathlon doesn't have over here. You know, it is a relatively kind of small sport. There's not that many people who, you know, take it up. And it'd be amazing to see that. But maybe because people don't want to go, you know, everyone really likes each other. You know, they don't, oh, I know that person and I beat them last time. It's just, and I wonder whether that was just the right sport for me or whether I've brought that into my sport. I don't know. But it's a nice way.
Mr. Competitive.
Yeah, I've kept quiet.
Yeah.
I'm completely the other end of the scale. So,
why are you competitive, Matt?
It's not a podcast stop for me, Clara. Yeah, but no, I agree on that. It's interesting to hear that side of it, and you're right in the way that you approach things. That triathlon is a fantastic fit in that, because even how horrendously competitive I am, you're right. It's you have that space to just, in a sense, it's just a time trial. It's you just trying to improve yourself each time, and it takes that. And as you said, that I think naturally bleeds into that where we talk about the community and people around it. It's not that side. Yeah.
But you're not horrible at start lines. No. You're really nice.
He's too busy calculating who he can be. Yeah. He's too busy thinking about which again, I'm not. I think it's important. Like, I'm a competitive.
Yeah.
I must say, as I get older, I'm probably less so, and I'm more about, let's call it participation.
Yeah.
Whatever whatever happens at the end.
Yeah.
Happens at the end until we do our ultra next year, Matt.
Yeah.
When you want to beat me.
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. Anyway. But it is that, and I think for me on my competitive side, that will never lose when we get onto the Ironmans.
Never lose it or lose full stop.
Unfortunately, my record says I have one. But I don't think I'll lose my competitiveness. But I found a good outlet when we talk about that, where sometimes the mental space and everything coming on with that. I found the 70.3s, the long distance triathlons, all that side to it's great, because it is like you go into it, and politely for me, I know I'm not going to be up there in the front. It's just where we talked about before, that atmosphere and that. I'm just enjoying the day.
Yeah,
I can actually do a sport, and I'm not worried about what's going on. I'm just enjoying the day and what will be, comes
you
through.
against yourself.
And
that's what it is.
And that for me has been a real good outlet in that sense of not just constant, right, as you said, I'm on the start line, who am I looking at, and everything that comes with it. That's one thing I would really say. I
think if you look at, and I wonder how much of that relates to more, let's call them more extreme. So I suppose triathlon, if you look at, let's call it ultra events, full stop, if you start at the base level, which is probably a triathlon, because it's pretty varied, there's a few different things. To get very good at it, you've got to be very good at all three different things. So it's kind of on that start spectrum of ultra to then doing some bonkers 100-mile, running race or an Ironman, where the rally is 99% of the competitors, or if not 99.5%, are just about getting around, aren't they? It's about the achievement rather than on the execution of it by that individual, rather than the actual, I want to finish first, second, or third, or top 10, for example. And I wonder if just that triathlon is that the start of that journey into that, let's call it that ultra space, where ultimately it's people coming together to achieve something together, and whether you finish 100 or 120, it's irrelevant. It's how did I feel? Did I enjoy it? Type of experience.
And that's definitely the way that you see it. And even over here, racing over here, you will get people who are like going to the Island Games, and we were lucky to have Will race with us in September, right down to people who are doing triathlon for the first time, and they will pot around because they want to complete it. And I think that is what's so amazing about it. And you don't have to be competitive to get involved in a sport, I guess. You also don't have to win. And I think we're all, as humans, naturally willing to compare ourselves to others. And I think, especially in times of social media and stuff like that, I definitely think it's important to maybe sit back and think you don't always have to compare yourself to everyone else, and you can bring it more in home, kind of internally, focus on internal growth, and sometimes it can make you a little happier. If you're not comparing yourself to people all the time, because it's rife nowadays. But if you just focus more at kind of internally rather than externally, there is a lot of peace there.
So going to go back to the coach point, is that out of interest for triathletes? Do you typically get coaches for each discipline, or because your coach is a former triathlete, they can help you in all those spaces?
Yeah, so my coach helps in all. Will Draper's partner is actually my coach. And I think some people will do it all three. Some people won't have a coach, because they'll be in tune with their own body. They'll know what's right for their own training. But for me, I look at someone like Chloe, who's my coach, and I see someone who I think, you've kind of progressed in this amazing direction. You've done so well. I'd love to learn from you. And I don't know a lot about triathlon at all. When I started triathlon, I didn't even know who the pros were. I didn't know any famous triathletes. I was so rubbish. So I've had to do loads of research. But it's, as you said, learning from someone. If you go for a new job, you will learn from the person senior to you. And I'm excited to learn more about it. And, who better than someone who's been through that process themselves and kind of seen great progress from it.
Are you, and in your coaching or your style, then, are you quite technical? Are you interested in the numbers and the watt savings, the nutritional, dialing everything in? Do you go into the nitty gritty?
So I'm mad on health, mad on it. And that's kind of a personal passion, mad on everything that helps you be a healthy person, your longevity, your brain. I'm, really crazy about that, and not so much for sport. I guess it helps, but I want to know where my bloods are at, how they're doing, what I'm lacking, what I'm not, how's my diet, is it good? But like, I'm not going to deprive myself because I love chocolate and cake and sweets. Like, I think life is all about a balance, but the numbers for me, yeah, I am a data person, so I've kind of worked with numbers. My brain works in numbers, but I think because my coaching is so new, that what I want to do is kind of trust a process. And, at the moment, because it's what we call off season, I don't know if that's a really cool word or not, but I call it like off season, where you're not really training as much because you're not focusing on a specific race. That it's not very numbers based. It's nice. It's quite chill. It's focusing on technique. It's focusing on effort, feel, and then I guess when it comes to crunch time, I want to know how well I'm swimming. What's a good day? What's a bad day? What's a good pace? What's a bad pace? How my watts are. If my legs feeling rubbish that day. But I won't spend too much time analysing it. I'll do the session, take it for what it is, and move on with it. But yeah, as I said, it's a hobby. So I think I've got to just do what I enjoy. Some days are good, some days are really, really bad, and just move forward with that.
Let's talk a bit about health then, because obviously we chatted just before we came on air again about, you mentioned about saunas, for example. So maybe just for listeners, because it's a subject I take a lot of interest in, and I wouldn't say struggle to find people. I'd love to find high experts in the different fields that the health covers. I suppose outside of maybe just food. But for you, like if you had to say to somebody, just from a health, forgetting about what impact it might have on your sport, take up these 3 habits in regard to health, what would those be? What would your top 3 be?
Mine would be. In any order, mine would be
because there's no first and second and third. It's just
no, there is no podium. But lifting some sort of weights, once or twice a week minimum.
Let's start with that. Why that? Tell us your reasoning.
Bone health, especially as we age, I think it's really a lot of people can get stuck in just doing kind of cardio work, but for your longevity, for your older self, making sure that you maintain that strength for the strength of your bones. For when you're an older person, or if, you want to prevent the risk of injury, if you are a sports person.
Back there, is it?
Yeah. Must do weights.
All the weights I've been doing today.
But I think, if you think of the quality of a life when you're older, the stronger you are, the less likely you are to suffer from kind of age-related disease. And also, I think there's little things for like mums. I was with my friend today who's a new mum. She was saying, God, I definitely took for granted the work I'd done in the gym, because just simple things like lifting a 10-kilogram baby carrier out the car, the little things like that, you would maybe, if you hadn't lifted weights, you would do it with poor form, which could relate to a long-term injury. So I definitely say, a little bit of weight training.
Who do you listen to in that space?
I don't really. No. It's something I've done a lot of personal research on, and something that I've done since quite a young age. I'd followed various gym plans. I'd, watched a few YouTubes and stuff like that. And obviously with my coach now can help point me in the right direction. But one of our really close friends was a strength and conditioning coach, and he actually coaches for soccer teams in the US. So he has done like extensive research into it, so can help us more towards our sport. But there are amazing like classes everywhere on the Isle of Man. There's like parasize classes for like people who are a little older who need to do kind of weights and, like chair-based exercises and things like that. I just think it's so important when you're aging. And I think, if you're not doing a lot of manual labor, you miss out on that strength.
It's interesting because 33, did you say you were 34, coming up 34, to hear that from someone which obviously optically and in a lifetime is young in relative scheme. But the one thing I mentioned, we'll move on to the next one, which is we talked about Rhonda Patrick because she talks about longevity.
Yeah.
And the other person that people look up is Peter Ottila. Do you listen to any of his stuff?
Yeah, I'm
He's really
I'm
good.
more of a Rhonda Patrick fan, just because I love the way that she puts across the science. But which leads nicely into my second one, that Rhonda is the person who kind of introduced me to the benefits of sauna. And you see that quite a lot now with athletes using sauna. And I just think sauna is such an incredible benefit. And I think it's low impact, obviously, because you're not pounding the pavements running, but it has the benefits of doing exercise because it increases your heart rate. It helps with immunity, so you can fight off infection because it's teaching your body how to cool itself down. Reduced rate of cardiovascular disease. And I think for a lot of people, if they do suffer with, injuries or don't enjoy running, I think a lot of people would enjoy a sauna, sitting in there for kind of 15 to 20 minutes a few times a week can bring real benefits to kind of your day to day. So that's something that I would 100% recommend. And then I think...
Can I just finish off the sauna one? So it's interesting you mentioned in there that, because obviously I know we're here talking about sport, but the benefits outside of sport. So again, you don't have to feel like you need to be a sports athlete or doing sport to get the benefits, because as you say, it's been strongly linked to longevity as well.
Yeah, and people, in Scandinavian countries have used sauna for a lifetime, and they are so healthy. Their cardiovascular disease rate compared to like the UK is phenomenal. And I think it's just, it can be social as well. You can go to like a communal sauna where there'll be various people. We've obviously got the amazing facility down in Port Erin, the Kishti Spa, which is such a beautiful way to get kind of that health benefit in, going with your friends, there's sea there, it's a beautiful setting. I definitely think it's one of the most underrated kind of pieces of equipment for our health. And you don't have to be a fitness bod, to keep healthy. I think definitely a sauna.
And finally, sorry to go the final one, but can I go back to the strength? Because the other thing that I watched, I always thought was interesting, was the analogy was like gravity's pushing you into the ground. It's its job. Well, it's not its job, but it's what it's doing to you. So the importance of, and the stats show, like later in age you have a fall, your life expectancy just plummets. So the importance of having that, and obviously your bones get weaker and weaker, and you can do certain things to improve that over your course of your lifetime, but your muscle skeleton's the thing that needs to be, that is your frame. As you get later in life, that frame becomes more important. So,
and don't think you have to go to a gym. Do you know, like a lot of people think, I hate the gym, it's so intimidating. You don't have to do that. Just get yourself a couple little dumbbells in the garage, or even in the living room. Definitely, because anything is better than nothing. And I think that is definitely a huge one. And then I think my final one would be, it could be a bit more generic, but as both an athlete and maybe coming from a background as a woman, like, don't restrict yourself. Life is too short. Don't train underfueled. And that's a big one that I've learned coming into particularly triathlon, that underfueling yourself does you no good. Don't restrict yourself so that you can't eat this and you can't eat that. All right, if you're allergic to something, fine. But I think, life is short, and there is 100% a way to lead a happy, healthy lifestyle without cutting everything out. And that's, I guess you can take that as generic as you want, but something particularly growing up in the female world is that I would say, your health is more important than your size.
Okay, yeah, agreed. Can I then go back to touch on Island Games? Obviously, you went there with no expectations. Just talk about being there, and I guess we mentioned earlier that the experience of, it's a similar environment there, as in even a very competitive level. But you've got there within 2 years. Just talk about that a little bit, and that experience being there. And then
we had a great team, really. I'd never thought in my life, I was one of those people who said, I can do things, but I will never go to the Island Games because I'm just not good at anything. And that was genuinely my philosophy, is I'm just not good at anything. I will never make it to the Island Games. So I was like so honored to be able to make the Island Games team. And I think my favorite thing about it was, like, I'm not the most sociable person. And I know it seems weird for someone who talks, but I don't really enjoy the sociable side of things. I love people, but my battery runs out really quick. And I think what I really loved about this team is that everyone got on so well, but we all also appreciated that everyone had their own lives. Some of them were families, some of them, obviously, people like me, I wasn't going to go out drinking or on the night out. Like, we're all very accepting of each other, but there was a sense of closeness that I felt like I knew everyone. I was just really comfortable around everyone. And that's not something I would have expected from a sport. And I don't know if every sport's like that, but even going to watch the athletics, you know, we went down to watch Krista race, and just that sense of camaraderie was absolutely, it was such an experience, you know, for someone that I didn't think that I was into that. It was absolutely phenomenal. And, you know, I've made some really amazing friends from it. And it was such a beautiful place. We expected to be going and it'd be freezing cold. And we arrived to this beautiful island, which like valued its marine biology and its marine life. It was stunning and it was really warm. Yes. We'd been cold prepping in April in Port Erin to be greeted by, how hot was the water? 20.
Yeah, it was hot, wasn't
something
it?
like 20 odd degree water temperature, and it was just phenomenal, hotter than we'd expected. But so many people came to watch. You know, it was the first event. The triathlon's always the first event, and it was just fantastic. I mean, it's always a faff getting somewhere like that. You know, to little islands, and I'm sure people will experience that when they come to the Isle of Man in 2029. Which is really exciting if they get the NSC pool fixed. We could talk about that. But, you know, it's such a great atmosphere, and I am so excited for that to come home in 2029, because that will just be, it's such a phenomenal experience.
Were you nervous?
I'm going to say no, but I think if you asked Andy on the morning, what makes me most nervous is with triathlon is, have I got everything?
Yeah.
There's a hat, a bike, a this, a that, and I get down there and everyone's like happy and excited, and I'm just thinking, have I got everything? Is everything there? You know, I guess when you start, so you forget everything. But I get nervous that something won't go right. And it definitely didn't go right for me. I flung my bike across transition by accident and scuffed all the side of my handlebars. Yeah, it was absolutely horrible. But no, I guess I wasn't really nervous for the race, because having a look at the other people that are racing, I felt like they were a cut above me. Some of these people are like pre-pro, you know, and I just thought, I'm just some old gal, you know, like I'm nowhere near these people. So I guess it was, you know, really surprising that, yeah, maybe having no nerves is what does it. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if it's correlated to the. You talked earlier about the C word, competition, and the because you're not internalizing any pressure in your head.
Yeah.
About beating people. It's just going through your own processes, and therefore the nerves are not really there, because what's to be nervous about? As you say, you put the training, you could have done way more, I'm sure. You could have done way less, but you've done what you've done.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of executing, isn't it?
But that's why I think with the Isle of Man in 2029, whether I'll feel differently, because not many people could come and watch us in Orkney. You know, it was restricted because there wasn't many places for people to stay, but all my family and friends live here, and it's a home game. So will I feel differently for that? In my head, I think like, 4 years away, I want to do well at the Isle of Man Island Games already. But
it's the competitive piece.
Yeah, is that it coming out? But then I wonder what I define well as. Because sometimes...
Well, it's ultimately what you think, not what other people think, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I am really looking forward to that. It's going to be a phenomenal
won't be as hot as Orkney, will it?
Yeah, no, it won't be as hot as Orkney.
Yeah. So I've just got one more question, if that's all right.
Yeah.
And just to transition away from sport. So we've done a couple of podcasts before, more in the business space. And So yeah, just for listeners, I guess you're probably pretty well known locally on the business side of things, but talk about the businesses that you and Andy are connected with.
Yeah, I think kind of coming into triathlon, maybe it was because I wanted to take a step back from corporate life. You know, I love how far our businesses have come, and that took a lot of hard work, the getting out there, the networking, especially for someone who, I hate to say, doesn't come naturally, but it doesn't, the love for it doesn't come naturally to me. So balancing that has been, you know, interesting, but I also feel like we've got the businesses to that point where people can come in and help us, so that it can give us the flexibility to take the time to do the things we love. You know, at such a young age, I threw myself in so hard into doing well in business that I think now that I'm in my mid-30s, it's time to just give back to myself a little bit. I'm so proud of our businesses because they're different. You know, they Recycle Collect is just a completely different ball game with the way we hire, the way we treat people, the way we run. It's like a business that no one else has on the Isle of Man. I can say that safely. It's run for the employees, by the employees, and they do an incredible job. But I don't need to be in part of that because they've learned how to take that and how to run it. I think...
Is that organic?
Yeah, it's been such, you know, an incredibly versatile business, but it's required pivoting quite significantly in areas, and that has meant getting involved quite significantly. But it was a hobby, you know, a business that was a hobby for me was something I didn't really want to be completely involved in because we were so involved in the payroll software side that I wanted someone else to be able to kind of run the day-to-day of Recycle Collect, and they do, and they're absolutely amazing at it, and I completely, you know, let them crack on, and I'm always there for them. You know, if they ever needed me for anything, I will always be there, and I'll still, you know, kind of muddle in the background, and I'll do a holiday shift if they let me. They probably hate me sometimes when I go into work, but I think it's, you know, my husband would say differently at this current time, but for me, I want to kind of step out of that world for a little bit. Business is amazing, it's fantastic in what's enables me to do what I'm doing today, but I also don't want it to be everything about me. You know, I was so absorbed that I'm, you know, happy to have the time to be able to do a sport as well, but with everything, you know, nothing becomes a success without, you know, grit and determination. But I also think you can't just be solely responsible for the continued success of something. Someone else has to be able to come in. But yeah, some people are just really good at business and some people are just really good at sport. And I kind of want to just be a little bit of everything. Yeah.
It's good. It's good. It's balance, isn't it? It's not your identity's tied into one thing or the other thing.
Yeah. And I think that's so important, is that I love triathlon, but I am not triathlon. You know, I absolutely love our businesses, but I am not the businesses. And I think when you put so much into it as a young person, you know, and that's one thing I'm really grateful about when I started at Hardin Lewis when I was 18, that, you know, they put up with me. I was probably so crap, but they put the time and effort into me to help me train, and in return, I wanted to do well. But with that comes throwing everything at it. But it didn't define, you know, it doesn't define me. It did for a long time, but I think it definitely doesn't now.
Yeah, it's probably part of that. Like you say, there's times you have to go full in to achieve certain things. So,
and I would never stop it. You know, if something happened tomorrow and I needed to roll my sleeves up, I would, you know, get eyeballs deep in anything that I needed to get involved in. But I also want to live out a life that I feel like I didn't live out before. You know, I didn't do university. I didn't do like any sort of sporting kind of stuff because I was just, you know, focused so much on my career that now's time to And you can at any age, and that's proven. That's not just proven in triathlon. That's proven in cycling, in running, particularly in running in the Isle of Man. There's some incredibly successful athletes who, are mid-30s upwards. So it's never too late.
Yeah, I agree. Clara, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Very inspirational. And well done on your not competitive sport.
Thank you.
But you are like to run the businesses and
Yeah.
you're very grounded.
Thank you.
Very grounded,
Oh, guys, don't I'll cry.
that's the idea. No. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
It's word out from Martin.
And word out from Matt.
Poor flimsy humans. Don't you wish you were flawless like me? A towering inferno of physical perfection?
I hate to pop your blimp-like ego, but you're not perfect.